Just start. Yeah. Can I have some audio? Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Hello. I think we'll have some audio. There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we tonight? That was rubbish. Try again. That's better. That's better. By the end of tomorrow, we'll have it down pat. Now, welcome to all of those who were able to attend last night. Welcome to all of those who this is your first hustings. Welcome to all of those online. Last night, I think we had about sort of 100 people watching online, which was quite exciting. Right, now, I have to start with, unfortunately, I actually had a complaint to myself last night. Apparently, I wasn't a very good host. So what I've done tonight is I've smartened up a bit. I've got a waistcoat. I've gone with the red tie theme. And I was thinking earlier on the way up about what this all actually means. Now, currently, we've got the Ukraine. People are standing up and fighting for what they believe in. We've had the storyline to Les Miserables. Yeah, basically, throughout history, people have stood up to defend what they believe in. And I think that's particularly prevalent tonight because all of the people who you will see are actually taking a stand thinking, yeah, you know what, I can make a difference to this university. I can pick you, madam, and I can make your university experience better. I think I've just scared her. So throughout tonight, please show your support. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to come up in here and stand there and talk in front of you. I know, I'm petrified. So please give a big cheer and just like really, really sort of show your support. So tonight we have the Editor-in-Chief, the Education VP, the Equality Diversity Officer, the Postgraduate Officer, and the VP Sports and Recreation. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Charlie Eastall, who will be the Chairperson for the Equality and Diversity. So Charlie, if you'd like to make your way forward. Round of applause for Charlie, come on. So I'd also like to welcome to the stage the candidates and let the hustings commence.
Okay, hello. Is that working? Okay, before we start, just like to introduce the candidates via VT, which is now playing. Well, it should be playing. Hello?
Lucy Cook, Shana Jansen.
Hi, I'm Shana. I'm running for Equality and Diversity Officer, and you should vote for me because I want to make sure that you feel safe on campus.
Andil Sibanda.
Sorry, it's Andile, isn't it? Andile. It's Andile Sibanda, not Andil. So, these candidates are running for the position, it's a part-time position on the Union Executive, the Equality and Diversity Officer. So the question which has been pre-submitted to these candidates and that they've had 3 days to prepare for is, do you believe in positive discrimination or affirmative action, as it's known, across the pond? So I'm going to go first of all, first to my right, Lucy.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy and I'm a first-year biomedical science student. To an extent, I believe in affirmative action, but I believe that identifying groups of people who need help and support is key. However, I don't feel that people should be grouped together and labelled as weaker for needing that support. This role is about ensuring everyone receives equal opportunities and the level of the support they need during their time at uni, rather than prioritising a certain group of people and turning a blind eye to everybody else. I will be proactive in making sure that everyone feels involved with university life and want to bring people together while they complete their studies here. I just want everyone to love uni as much as I've loved it so far.
Thank you, Lucy. And to Andale?
Personally, I believe in equality, and I think that affirmative action is sort of the opposite, if you understand what I mean. Someone should be judged on their performance and ability and what they can do, not the race, gender, or like anything else, like in that direction. And affirmative action, I'm not sure if you know, it was enforced in America after the civil rights thing that they had, and also in South Africa after the apartheid. And it has had like some negative effects. Although it was enforced to give like the minority groups or the blacks a boost sort of thing in jobs and education and all this, but it has had some negative effects. And I just think that is racist and sexist to be able to say that, oh, you can't have this job because you're white, you can't have this job because you're black, or because you're a female, because you're a male. It's just wrong, and I fully believe in equality, so no, I just don't believe in affirmative action, full stop.
Thank you, Adelaide. And finally to, sorry, is it Shana? Shana, do you believe in positive discrimination?
First off, I'd like to say that I don't think it's a clear-cut question. Like, the answer isn't going to be yes or no. I do believe that the intention is there, and there is a definite importance to go against the systematic racism that is present in society. And we need to break down the stigmas attached to the minorities, but its implementation needs a lot of fixing. At the moment, a lot of the focus is mostly on maintaining a certain quota, and not even just that, it's like they won't go over the quota necessarily. And I believe it starts with more re-education and integrating every different gender, sexuality and ethnicity. And we should start here, because we're at the forefront of the job market, and if we can base if we can base more of our actions on personal qualities instead of, oh, I'm that colour, I'm that gender, I'm this person or that, we need to shift from that and make it so we don't have to look at that at all anymore.
Okay, thanks to the candidates for that one. So I'm going to read out some questions based on the manifestos. So those of you who have manifestos, you might want to turn over. The pages aren't numbered, but it's roughly in the first half. Lucy, in your manifesto, first of all, first point, I'm a little bit confused. I don't know if you can explain to us. It says vote Lucy Cook number 1 for equality. EQU capital letters. I don't know if I'm missing a pun.
No.
Or is it just a typo?
No, it's just a typo.
Okay, the second part is that there's not really much more to that question.
Okay.
I didn't know, and I might press on what EQU stood for. We tried to come up with some different ideas, but I won't read those out. You say that you want everyone who comes to university to feel the same. What? So that's equality, right? Okay? That's not diversity. Do you not believe in diversity?
I do believe in diversity, however, by the same, I mean, I feel that everyone should have equal opportunities while they're at university. For example, I feel like everyone should come to university with the intent to be able to join a society, because when you get here, there's nothing stopping you immediately. With diversity, everyone could join a different society, whatever they are interested in. I think that's the way the diversity comes into this.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. Shana, you talk about awareness and representation for LGBT+, the society. Are you aware of how much finances that society has, and how that society has the highest profile society event on the calendar, month in, month out?
Honestly, I don't know the finance behind that, but I know what I see on campus as a student, and I know what other students see on campus. And they, as a society, I think they're really great, and they do a lot of events, but it's more spreading them like that, it's more available to everyone. I'm not saying they're inclusive, don't get me wrong. I'm saying, for example, there is LGBT History Month this month. Who here has actually seen any of the posters or has any of the events? I've only seen them in the arts departments, and I don't think that should be a thing.
Okay. Andale, you talk about time restrictions on advice services, time restrictions. First of all, can you explain what you mean by that? And secondly, how, as a part-time officer, are you going to actually affect that?
Okay, what I mean is, like, personal example, I went to the CV services, like the career services to like have my CV looked over, and they were like, you can only come in between this time and this time. Like, I don't think that's fair. They should open up the services so that you'll be able to come in for whatever you want, whenever you want, because we're all on different schedules.
Is that the role of Equality and Diversity Officer?
I meant it as in, like, so that people know where to get help, wherever they are, if you understand what I mean. yeah, so that you know that you can get help here at this time, and if you can't get it, like because of your schedule, you can go at any time, sort of thing, so that the services are open.
Okay, thank you for that. So far, any questions from the floor? This is the opposite over here. So Sammy, if you can just pass. So direct questions, sorry, not direct, open questions to all candidates, please. I don't think the mic's working on that one, the roaming mic. Try now. No. Sorry, it's just people watching at home.
Hello? Is that better?
There we go.
Okay. Many students' unions have liberation positions. So, for example, a black students' officer or a women's officer. Do you think this is something we should have at Surrey? And if yes, what impact would this have on the union executive?
Okay, so do you think we should have a black students' officer? We have a black students' officer at a number of students' unions around the UK. Should we have one here at Surrey? That's first of all to Shana.
I definitely think it's something we need to look into because at the moment we don't have enough representation in that respect. I feel that a lot of the time it's either going to be the equality or diversity officer or the international officer that gets to deal with the ethnicity issues. And at the same respect, I want to draw it further and have a woman's officer and LGBT officer.
Okay, and to Andale.
That was actually the similar structure it was at my college. We had an equality and diversity team which consisted of a black students officer, LGBT officer and a learning disabilities officer. And I think that worked more effectively because the officers were able to concentrate on their specific role, and it was like enhanced the college quite a lot. So I think it's a really good idea.
Okay, and finally to Lucy.
I actually think that the role of Equality and Diversity Officer is to liaise with, for example, the President of the Afro-Caribbean Society and societies similar to that, and liaise with the President of the LGBT Society to, so that they can kind of have an input on what Equality and Diversity Officer does, rather than having a set individual for each position within the union.
Okay, this is a question that's just come through. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing on campus, so it's phrased hilariously, obviously, but serious answer for that one. If you, sorry, I was just distracted by another one that's just come in. You could change one thing on campus, what would you change? That's to Andale first.
I would change the celebration of different cultures. I understand that we have a culture week or a world week. I don't see why that should be restricted to 1 week when cultures should be celebrated sort of all the way throughout the year. We should be aware of like different cultures and their celebrations and like when they are, for example. Yeah, I'll change that.
Okay, and what would you change, Lucy, with your magic wand?
I'd actually like to increase the amount of place where people can just kind of meet each other. So at the moment people tend to kind of go between lectures and just kind of there's common rooms for each individual subject, but I think maybe more kind of areas for people to meet each other and get to know each other and like bring students together would be better.
Okay. Finally, Shana, remember you've got a magic wand here, you can have anything.
If I could have anything.
You can, you have a magic wand. You have a magic wand. one thing, that's how it works.
I think we have a problem with lad culture on campus, and not just on campus. I think we're quite tame compared to some, obviously. But in
What's
the
the magic
NUS,
wand? What's happening, please?
I want to make sure that we don't have to have women go into nightclubs and just having them get groped be a general thing on campus. That's like a given.
Okay. Thank you. That's a difficult one to think of on the spot. It's always easier when you're watching to think, oh, no, I'd have with a magic wand. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. From the crowd, what would you have? What would you change on campus? One thing. Someone shout out. What? Free beer. Okay, free beer. So, another one. These are the students. These are the issues that they care about. Please represent a student view wider than just alcohol. Someone else. Another. What about them? They exist. You want them to be very expensive. I'm joking. I'm winding you up. I'm sorry. Yeah, so you want them to go down, right? So you would lower Amigo prices with a. I won't say what I would do. Another one. Shout out. Burger buns in Chancellors. There are burger buns in Chancellors. Better. That was actually the subject of a very successful presidential campaign 5 years ago, which got that guy elected. They changed the burger buns. This is true. And I don't know, are they the same today or were they reverted? Someone will have to tell me that information. So quite seriously, that was a campaign goal. Right, okay. Well, sounds like someone knows over there. One more thing, someone shout out. You are representing the student views. What would you change? What would you do to them? Well, if I imagine one. Yeah, this is what you have, Chris. This is like the 6th time. So what would you do? Cheaper, there we go. Round of applause, Chris Iton. Okay, if you were wondering, I was filling time. Okay, I've got a good question here. In the University of, well, at the University of, I believe, Edinburgh, someone correct me if I'm wrong, the song Blurred Lines has been banned from the Students' Union. Song Blurred Lines. I'm not going to give you a rendition, you know what it's like. Would you ban it if you were the position holder, Andile?
Would I do what? Sorry?
Would you ban the song Blurred Lines from this institution?
I don't see what's wrong with the song.
Next. Lucy, would you ban it? Do you think there's anything wrong with it?
I would see what the student body thought of the song, and then, depending on what feedback I got, I would see whether most people wanted the song banned or...
Okay, Shana?
I don't think I would. I mean, music is music. It perpetuates some things, but it's still freedom of expression. And if we cut into that...
Okay. Universities UK produced guidance that said male-female segregation in a religious context was acceptable on campus. That comes from the Universities UK, of which the Vice-Chancellor of this university is president. After much pressure, this guidance was reversed. What takes precedence then for you? Religious belief or sexual equality? Lucy?
I believe that we should take everyone's views into consideration, but I don't think anything should be forced upon anyone. So I don't think that we should... if somebody is, say, of a different religion to somebody else, we shouldn't force the views of certain religions on people who don't want to follow that religion. Therefore, I think the reversal of that is a good idea.
Shana, what takes precedence?
I don't think you can say anything take precedence. You, like Lucy said, you have to take both of them together. But it is an issue for the students. I feel like we should talk to the students about them and ask them what they really want. But you can't force anything on anyone, so compromise, basically. Okay.
Andile, do you have a view on this?
Yeah, no, I don't think any of them take precedence as well. It's up to what the students say. Like, some people are really strong on their religion, but then some people have really strong gender views. So at the end of the day, it's up to the students, I think.
Okay, as an officer on exec, you will have to make decisions on behalf of students. There's a comment come in that the chairs up here look as if they might have been replaced by a fence, and that in fact you are sitting on a fence and not on chairs. That's just come through. Just bear that in mind when we're moving forward. Bear in mind we are warming up for the rest of the night, so if people can keep oohing and cheering, that kind of thing, that's good for these guys and makes it much more fun for them. That as well, that's fine. Or you can do this as well. This is acceptable for all people. NUS will tell you. Okay, students don't care and they won't tell you. What do you think? Students don't care, right? No one here cares about this question. People want us to move on to the next session. No one cares. No one's bothered. No one's jumping up and saying, please, fight for me, do this for me. No one's that bothered. So what do you think? If you think students don't care and they're not telling you, what are you going to spend the year doing when you are elected? One of you probably will be elected. Ron is a 4th candidate. Remember that. Andile.
Well, if we say that students don't care, which I think is a lie. I think you care. I think students do care about their university and the things that impact them, like around the university. But let's say they didn't. I'd still like scream and shout, make a noise about equality and diversity. Yeah.
The voting target for context this year is 25%. If we reach that, that will be incredible. That's 75% of students who, in some people's book, don't care. That's some context of this. Lucy, what will you do if you think people don't care for a whole year?
I will target kind of the people who I know will care about the issue which I'm looking into or trying to make a decision on at that time. So, example, I'll liaise with the, let's say, go back to LGBT. About the LGBT week, they're obviously going to care about that kind of a issue. So I'm going to liaise with them, and then if that still doesn't get any interest, then I guess the decision would be with the people who do care, who are taking petitions in the union.
Okay, Chana, finally.
I think students do care, obviously. I think it's just making yourself more approachable and really going to the people who need to have a voice. And if I were elected, I would try and make myself more approachable by having sessions where people can come and talk to me.
When you say make yourself more approachable than what?
More approachable than currently is
Than you
the
are,
case.
or than the current
Than the
person?
person
Who's the
currently.
current person?
Taku.
Does anyone else here think Taku's unapproachable?
I don't think, no. Can I just cut in?
Well, I'm a politician, that's how we do
I
it.
don't think he's unapproachable at all. I know Taku's a really lovely person, but I think you need to make yourself more available.
Availability of the officers. These are part-time officers. They do have degrees to do, so it's perhaps that's where there is a clash with that kind of thing. Do you think page 3 should be banned on campus? That's page 3 of the Sun. It's all page 3s. just for context. Okay. Settle down. This is serious. So, do we think page 3 of the Sun newspaper should be banned on campus? I go first of all to Shana.
That's a really good question. If I'm honest, I do think it should be, because there is a time and a place for these kinds of things.
Let the candidate explain why. Do you want to explain
there is a
why?
time and a place for these kinds of things, and page 3, at the moment, it's available to anyone, like kids and people who shouldn't be...
On campus?
No, but if we're... I'm thinking about how I would do... I feel like campus is an example, like it's a smaller community, but it's representative of the outside world.
Okay, so the campus is isolated, insulated from the outside world. Do you agree? Should page 3 be banned on campus?
All right. No.
No, why not?
I don't think it should be, because there's some people that are really interested in page 3. Yeah. So
There's some people that are very interested in a lot of things that we might deem bannable on campus.
that's true. But if you don't want to see it, then if we're looking at equality, if you want to see it, you can look at it. If you don't look at it, sort of thing.
Lucy, does page 3 promote or condemn equality in some way? Does it suppress equality? Should we ban it on campus?
I don't think page 3 should be banned on campus, because I think people are always going to have different views on this subject matter, but and whatever decision's made, people will object to that view. But I don't think it should be banned, because if you want to read page 3 of the Sun newspaper, then you're free to do so.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the crowd? There was a bit of a ripple when I asked that question. Is there a reason? Anyone want to say anything on this? This is your opportunity. Over here, I think we have it's trying to get some feedback, 2 ways, have a conversation.
I was just going to say, I wonder if the candidates know that this is something that the current union exec already discussed this year.
What did the current union exec conclude?
That there wasn't a wide student opinion on it, so it seemed like a quite big reaction to go ahead and ban it, considering it isn't currently sold in the union shop, so it would have implied lobbying the Surrey shop.
Can I translate that? The students didn't care.
Not that they didn't care, only a very small number of
tried.
students felt the need to contact
All right,
uni
so
about it.
So only a small number of students had issue with this. So I guess perhaps this is as represented by the candidates here. Anyone got any stronger views on that? This is something which comes up time and time again online and in national newspapers, and in other students' unions it has been banned. Does Surrey not care about that? So anyone here who has issue with that? You don't have to say personally, but objectively. Nothing. Do we have a point? It usually works. Keep pressing, and eventually someone shouts out.
I don't really think like you can say it needs to be banned at the Surrey, because you could walk down the road to Tesco and get one. So I think it's a societal issue anyway. And if you're banning it on uni, then I don't really understand what's going to happen in wider society. Are you going to ban it in?
Is that the same, do you think, with lad culture? Is that a societal issue? Sorry, I know you're not a candidate, but you're welcome to answer.
I think it depends how you define lad culture. I think that's a massive thing, because there's a really stereotypical typology of...
I'll stop you there, because that's very useful. So, next question to the candidates is, please define lad culture. Is it a problem in Surrey? I'll give you a little bit of time to think. Thank you, that was really helpful. A little bit of time to think. They haven't got access to Google, but they do all have paper. I do. Can someone... Alan, can you give me a definition of lad culture? Well, I did set myself up for that. Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. Oi, oi to you as well. Yeah, let's not shout that out. We are live on the radio. Please don't swear. We'll get to that radio point for editor-in-chief, guys, upstairs. Okay, so starting with Lucy.
I think a good example of the lad culture recently has been the neck nominate phenomenon. I think that it's a lot to do with peer pressure, and in actual fact, lad culture usually stems from being one lad who tends to be kind of a ringleader almost, or kind of a group of lads.
Okay, does Surrey have a problem with that?
I don't think Surrey necessarily has a large problem with that. I think it's more... It can be seen a lot more on social media these days, like the neck nominate.
Okay, I'll move on. So I'll go to Shana.
I don't think Surrey has a massive problem with it, again, but it is a societal issue. So obviously it does have some effects on the Surrey campus. Like I said before, there is a problem with how it pressures both girls and guys. Girls are pressured to dress a certain way, and guys are pressured to partake in all of that laddish, oh, let's get drunk. Not everyone wants to do that.
Okay, Andile. Definition, and does Surrey have a problem with this?
Definition.
Definition of lad culture, and whether Surrey has a problem with the predefined issue.
Lad culture, as the person said in the back, oi oi. Yeah.
Disgusting.
Lad culture is sort of like, I'd say, boys being boys, groping girls, thinking they can walk up to girls, drinking loads, making loads of noise.
Are you quite accepting of this culture?
Not really.
Just the way you said boys be boys, a couple of people raised their eyebrows.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm not accepting of the culture at all. I think maybe when some guys come to uni, they sort of take advantage and maybe be peer pressured into maybe drinking and doing things that they wouldn't usually.
Does Surrey have a problem with this?
I don't think so. Not that I know of at all, no.
Put your hand up if you think Surrey has a problem with lad culture. Put your hand up if you think Surrey has lad culture. See, that's phraseology is very important. Put your hand up if you think there's no problem at all and lad culture does not exist on Surrey's campus. Okay, so it at least exists and there's no problem at all. You're not sure, you think maybe, maybe not. Okay. Okay. No, I'm not going to ask that one. Okay, does anyone want does anyone want tweezers to remove the splinters that you're receiving from sitting on the fence? This is what I'm reading this online. I'm reading this online. I'm giving you an opportunity to stand out. This is an election. This is a first, second, third and fourth preference election, you want to make sure that you are number one, and if not number one, that you're number two, or at least you're above Ron. That's quite true. If Ron wins, then we go to another election, which you're welcome to stand again in. I'm sure one of you will be elected, don't worry. So, it took this union over 20 years to elect its first female president. Okay, over 20 years. We've now had 2 in the space of 5 years, but before the first time. No female candidates this year for president. There are no female candidates. No females even submitted a nomination for the position of president. It's not like they pulled out. So, and the way this question is phrased is obviously provocative. Why is this union so prejudiced against female presidents? Do you think? Everyone on the floor, think of some questions. These are very good questions that are coming in. People keep tweeting. Those of you who weren't here last night, we were, I think, number 3 UK trend in the end for hashtag Surrey Decide. So it got a lot of tweets. Yeah, woo! Let's cheer that. Yeah, woo! Yeah, great, thank you. And Mike said 100 watchers online. We had about 500 at peak, so it was quite a lot more than that. Okay, so someone's tweeted, when will someone mention feminism? So think what you will of that. So, what do you think, Shana?
I don't think we have a thing against female presidents. I think it's more that we don't maybe encourage them enough. There are certain, like, you can see it on campus. There are certain areas where there's not a lot of girls who are in a certain department, and the same goes for guys. Maybe presidency is one of those areas where maybe girls don't feel like they can go for it as easily as others. And
you aware that we currently have a female president?
Oh yeah, I am. I obviously am, but it's also only been 2. So
fair point. 2 female presidents in the last 5 years. 5 female presidents in the last 20 years, which is, think what you will of that. Is it improving now? What do we think? Andale, do you think this university is prejudiced against female presidents?
I don't think so. As you said, we have a female president now, so it's not going to be prejudiced against. I think it's just there's a stigma of male dominance. That's not just in the uni, that's everywhere. So you just think that president should be male because that's the stigma. But it's just encouraging females, really, to be able to run for, like, higher posts. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, and finally to Lucy.
I don't think that if you look at society as a whole now, it's moved on a lot from 20 years ago when it was male-dominated. But now we're getting to the stage where kind of, dare I say, equality is kind of getting there almost. And I don't think it's necessarily that women are scared of, say, going for president. I think it's more this year, for example, there's no females. I think it's just the choice of the candidate down to the personality of the people and what they feel at that certain point, whether they want to nominate themselves or be nominated for the position.
Okay, so I'm going to take one more question from the floor if there is one. Do we have any? One over here, I think. You can choose, fight between yourselves over who goes first. There's just one question, please. And please direct it to all 3 candidates.
This is slightly moving away from the topic of feminism and black culture. Right, I am a disabled student here at Surrey, and I sometimes feel that I'm a little bit underrepresented, and I feel that my tutors don't really look out for me. To confirm to everybody, I'm profoundly deaf, and I really struggle in my lectures sometimes and my seminars. So I've nagged my tutors, I've spoken to them, but they don't seem to change their ways. What can you do as Equality and Diversity Officer to change this, to help people like me?
What are you going to do to help people like Tilly? Thanks for that question. Right, okay, we'll start off with Shana.
I think there definitely is a need to talk to the students more about it. As I say, like, if we can poll the students more for what they want and what they need, then we can take it. Me, for example, I could take it to the VP Welfare. I really want to work closely with the VP Welfare to see what we can actually do for that issue.
All right, Lucy.
What I'd like to ask is if you have managed to speak to anyone else who's feeling the same way about this. Anyone else? Have you met anyone else at university who's profoundly deaf, or have you like met up with any other students who may have a disability who are struggling? Yeah. No.
Yeah, I think I don't think we can have it. Do you mind having a conversation afterwards there?
Yeah. What I'd like to say is, I think the first step in sorting something out for this situation would be to find out as a whole, like get the people who are suffering in a similar way, to get them all together and to listen to what they feel needs to be done. And then what I would suggest is to make improvements based on what they...
Okay, Andale, finally.
I would say that maybe identifying students from the beginning that need that support, and not just identifying them by like a little tick box in a survey before they start, because that's just a name on a piece of paper. Being able to say this particular student needs this sort of help and giving them this support.
Those two things exactly the same thing? Identify them at the start, but then don't identify them before they come?
No, I mean like...
Sorry, you can just explain that.
You identify them before they come, but then identify them when they're here as well, not just ticking the piece, yeah. And just improving accessibility overall around campus for them.
Okay, thank you. So I have one final question for the candidates, which is, a few of you have spoken about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the opportunity for people with the page 3 idea, that if they don't want to look at it, they don't have to look at it. If people want to start this, they can start this. They don't have to listen to it, that kind of thing. If a candidate, or not just a candidate, but a student, wants to start an EDL society on campus, English Defence League, what would you say to that? What would be your response to that? This English Defence League. I'll go first to Lucy.
I personally don't agree with some of the things from the EDL, but what I would say is, if they're not affecting other students, if they're keeping it contained within what they think, and then what, say, a group of people who may agree with their views think, then I think that as long as other people aren't being affected by...
What do you mean by affected?
So I don't think that they should target certain students within the university. I don't think they should...
the purpose of EDL is to affect other people.
Yeah, but I feel that they're allowed to have those views, but they need to be contained rather than... Okay,
so some kind of containment. What do you think, Shana?
I do have to agree with Lucy. It's a difficult issue. You can't say, no, you can't be a society, but it just can't infringe on other people's rights within the student body.
Does the student body have a right for the EDL to not exist on campus?
I do disagree with it, but I believe more in freedom of speech, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. That's
brave to say that as well. I think it's very difficult to make a decision when you're put on the spot. Finally, Andale.
I think in that case I would have to open it out to the students, see what they say.
What's your opinion? What's your opinion?
My opinion.
Yeah, you're a student.
If I was to sort of vote on it, I'd be...
Yeah, if you're an exec, you will have to vote on policies, and this might be one of them. So let's pretend it's a policy. EDL society. It's not how it works, but let's just pretend it is.
Well, looking at equality, I would have to say they have the right to open up a society like anyone else has the right, as long as they're not sort of hurting others and like discriminating against others.
Okay. I said final question. This is a very quick one, and this only requires one word for this answer, and it's not yes or no. They're boring. So, who's your idea VP welfare candidate? Who is your welfare vote going to? You're number one. You can't vote for Ron. And if you do want to vote for Ron, I want your number 2 then, but I want a name. So you've all watched, you've all tuned in, you've all read the manifestos, you all liaised with the welfare candidates who you really want to work closely with next year. Who would you like to work most closely with? I'm going to start off with Andalay. Just a name. We don't have too much time for explanations. You can explain another time, I guess.
Munya.
Munya from Andalay. Joanna?
I'd have to go with Munya as well.
Another Munya and...
Tamsin.
Thank you very much to the candidates. Just one second. It's very difficult to start off the night, so thank you very much. I'm going to hand over now. I don't know how this is working. I think I might be handing over to Mike. We're coming back in about 15 minutes with the next session, which is RAG Chair and Postgraduate Development Officer. Thank you very much.
Question time. We are live from the Stag Media Broadcast Corner. And remember that you can also listen to Stag Radio live on 1350 AM and online. So we have just watched the debate for the Equality and Diversity Officer. And I will now ask some of my pundits some questions in reference to that. So just to introduce you guys. So we have Paul sitting over in the corner, followed by Ollie, Barry, Ian and Mike. I think I've got all them right, considering I just learnt them tonight. So this year, guys, there are 3 candidates running for Equality and Diversity Officer. Is there anyone that stands out particularly for you at this stage, Ollie, and why?
No, they don't stand out because I didn't think that there was a cigarette paper between what they had to say on the various different issues. There was a lot of deferring the decisions of the student body. There was a lot of not really having opinions on this and opinions on that. I think they all did a very good job in that, you know, they've clearly prepared, they've got ideas, they've got values, but I'd like to have seen, you know, some definitive answer on things like affirmative action, on page 3, on blurred lines. It was all a little bit
on the fence.
Yeah, it's all a little bit on the fence, all a little bit splinters tonight. But you know, they did a good job, so you have to praise them for
without
that.
sitting on the fence yourself, could you pick one at all?
I thought Shona was quite good. You know, I think there's definitely a feminist undertone to her campaign, which is brilliant. That's what we need here, given that we're sitting on an all-male panel apart from yourself chairing. You know, I'd like to see more women on this panel. So I think, you know, she was quite good, but I don't really want to define, you know, one or the other. I think probably she pips it, but
right. Okay, so you just mentioned affirmative action there, which was obviously the main question that was posed to the candidates at the beginning of the debate. So Barry, what are your thoughts on affirmative action? Is it something that you believe in, or?
Well, I think they covered that quite well, but it's difficult in terms of, I mean, equality and diversity. The diversity is a bigger issue for me than equality. It's easy to identify who's equal and who's not for various, although the meat of the question for me didn't come until the disability question at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's for me it's a far bigger issue than beer prices or whatever was talked about earlier on.
Yeah.
Diversity is very difficult to accommodate in the campus this size in anywhere actually. But I thought they answered quite well, and I agree with Ollie that there's not much between them at the moment.
I just want to chip in and say the other thing that wasn't mentioned was economic inequality. Yeah. So there wasn't any sense, and there never has been during my time here, there wasn't a sense that the Equality and Diversity Officer should be somebody who's tackling economic inequality. So there are poor students that come to this campus who are discernibly worse off than those who are richer, who can pay the £9,000 fees and are very, very lucky to be in a fortunate position. Not one of the candidates mentioned that particular issue, and I'd like to have seen that raised today.
Yeah. Definitely. So Ian, a question for you now. Obviously all of the candidates recognise the importance of making sure that international students feel welcome when they come to the university. Can you summarise briefly the benefits of having students from a variety of different backgrounds here at Surrey?
The benefits of having like a university, especially how we are based, I think at the moment it's about 60% national students and 40% international students. We get a great mix of cultures and different sort of diversity that's sort of half of this role. And it's not just about creating equality like some of the other pundits have said, it's about celebrating that diversity and having different days. I think one of the candidates mentioned quite a lot about how that we only celebrate in Germany for 1 year, or 1 month, 1 week of the year even. And we've had like Black History Month as well that Taki's run this year. And we should celebrate more throughout the year and try and get more societies working together to create events where students celebrate different cultures. And that'd be something that would be quite nice to sort of introduce, maybe if the new Equality and Diversity Officer comes in and sort of builds on that, so it does something this year.
Definitely. So in the manifestos, interestingly, all of the candidates mentioned how important it is to support students so that they're integrated into the university. And how do you think that the winning candidate can make sure that this becomes a reality, Mike?
I think it's showing that what you've said you're going to do, you're going to do. I think that's always been a case with hustings. It's all very much a case of sort of somebody sort of gold lining their campaign to some extent. You're sort of making all these promises, but it's coming down to the fact that when you say you're going to do A, B, and C, you actually do A, B, and C. I know that from what I've seen through my time, there's been candidates who have sort of backed down on certain issues and they haven't quite met their targets. I'm not going to name names, but
go on, Mike, go on.
No, I'm not going to name names. But it's very important to actually stand for what you believe in. And I think, as sort of Ollie was making the point earlier, a lot of the candidates were sort of sitting on the fence a bit, and they were a bit hesitant in giving sort of a proper answer to some extent. And I think it's not a bad idea to sit on the fence.
But with a position such as this, when you're dealing with such controversial kind of ideas, you do in some sense have to have a kind of a strong opinion in a leadership, because otherwise you won't necessarily get anywhere within this role.
But you have to remember they are candidates. They're not currently in the role
No,
yet.
this is true.
And there is an element of training when you start start taking on the role. So I think we have to give them an element of lenience as well.
But the whole point of a campaign is to have that dialogue with students and to find out what it is that sort of floats their boat on these particular issues. So these guys are going to have to sit in this particular room and take votes and decisions on issues throughout the course of the year. They can't have a referendum for every single issue. And there was a sense that every time a key issue came up, that something was a little bit difficult, it was going to be deferred back to a referendum. That's just not possible. So what I'd like to see in the next sort of week or so is these guys setting out their stall on the things like the Liberation campaign. You know, they did to a certain extent on page 3 and on blurred lines, but being really strong and forceful about their opinions to give students the choice as to what, you know, they actually want from their equality and diversity officer.
So Paul, I'm just going to ask you a question at the end now. So Lucy Cook mentioned in her manifesto that she'd like to see more international societies hosting their own campus events in Rubik's. So we do actually already have Greek Night and Teas Night as well that kind of offers a solution to this. And Wednesday and Friday are already dedicated to student nights. So how realistic and attainable do you think that this is, given the amount of work as well that would need to be put into hosting an event within Rubik's?
I think it's difficult because Rubik's has already got a very full schedule, and you need people, not just one person behind a role, to have that drive to actually want to do it. I mean, societies like the Greek Society are very big, and they've got the capacity to sort of get these nights out. And I'm sure that there are people that would want to do that, but as one candidate in one role, I think it'd be rather difficult, but not impossible.
Yeah. And finally, I'll pose this question to you all. So Andale describes in her action plan that she proposes in her manifesto that she quite likes the idea of bringing motivational speakers in to talk to minority students. How effective do you really think a kind of single individual speaker or individual person can be in bringing about a kind of positive change towards people who might feel that they are slightly discriminated against?
Well, it's a bit fencing again, but it depends on who the individual is at the end of the day. I think it's a good idea if there's a programme over the course of the year to bring on, you know, motivational speakers, and you know, I don't know quite who she's thinking of, but you know, that's something that would actually be a tangible achievement for this position. You know, the manifestos are a little bit sort of vague in terms of tangible actions that these guys are going to take. That's one thing. If she can do that, if she's elected, that would actually be a positive achievement, and they can achieve some change.
Anybody else have any ideas?
I would have said that why not open it up to everybody? Why does it have to be focusing on a certain group? I mean, personally, I might find I have more of an interest in, sort of within the culture and everything of other societies and sort of ethnicities and etc. If I actually had the chance to learn about it. I mean, it's not something that is always in front of you. So I mean, we obviously have the sort of the specialist weeks throughout the year, but let's be honest, with having a degree, you can miss these events. So why not open it up to everybody and everyone gets a chance to learn?
Definitely.
Yeah, that was to say as well, with that motivational speakers, who are they talking about? Are they talking about motivational speakers and campaigners that are well known of, that are going to come along and sort of motivate them to sort of campaign on certain issues? Or is it more like successful business people to motivate them to become better in business, or to be more inspirational? What is she talking about in that sense? And also, even if we do get motivational speakers in, where are we going to get them from? It's very difficult to make all these promises. Like, you can make tons of promises, unless you've got the connections with these people already. You may struggle to get many people coming along. Like maybe 2 or 3 is reasonable, but to get a long list of them throughout the year that's possibly unachievable.
I just hope she's not talking about NUS speakers, because they're some of the most unimaginative and dull that I've ever come across. So I hope it's not them that she's.
It's almost a cost-benefit thing, isn't it? I mean, motivational speakers, by their very nature, are usually very expensive, and something else would have to go. So personally, I think you look at your own resources. There will be motivational people within the university.
The question as well, because obviously with a very tight budget of the union this year, and every year at the moment, it's whose budget's going to suffer because of that. Someone's going to have to deal with that, and who's going to pay?
It would maybe be quite interesting to almost have, I'm not quite sure if we do have like a public speaking kind of society, and then build up from that, and then obviously that gets more students involved as well, and just helps different people prosper without having to waste money on resources, etc. So I think we might have time for one quick last question. So Shana Jansen explains how she wants to make Surrey an inclusive and safe environment for all genders, and she wants to do this by organising events. But is there smaller scale interventions she can do? I think we'll have to answer this quite quickly if anyone wants to jump in.
It's not something that I know a huge amount about. However, I've seen campaigns across different campuses about Reclaim the Night, particularly focused on the feminist campaigns, and those events have been really, really successful. So if those are the sorts of interventions that Shana's talking about, then fantastic. We need to see more of that.
Brilliant. So that's it now from us from here at Pundits Corner. We will be back with you very shortly, but now it's time for the next debate.